TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app. Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. Host Jeff Doss's Bankroll, aka Tea Time Wages with Brady Kannon, and second guest Tyler Wyatt around the 11:30 hour here. Quick shout out, of course, to our proud sponsor and partnerships. It's WagerWire. If you haven't downloaded the app, please head on over to Google Play, download it. It's free. Viva Tequila Seltzer. The East Coast is Cuckoo for Coconut. If you haven't tried it, shame on you. And our final and newest sponsor, Atlanta Steak and Seafood. I actually have a care package en route now. Should arrive on Thursday. I can't wait. I got some chops. I got some lamb, some New York strip. I even got a little seafood in there for a special. So head on over to Facebook, Terry Smith, follow him. And then while you're there, follow Atlanta Steak and Seafood as well. And then meet him. And if you have any questions, tell him JD from ECSI sent you. I promise you, he'll take good care of you. So this guy needs no introduction. We've been doing golf shows now for 2 years. He's on Sports Grid. You can get all his work on Twitter at Las Vegas Golf. He's got an amazing podcast going about the Crca contests and the Westgate contests. And through 2 weeks, the Carnage, 14,000 plus started, and there are under 4,000 left. But I'm going to call him Mr. LIV. 6 outrights are already this year on the LIV Tour, and we couldn't be prouder to have him, not just for today, not just for last year. We got him for a long time. The one and only Mr. Brady Kannon.
And you are too kind. That is a nice introduction there. And yeah, I'm thrilled to be in this chair each and every Wednesday morning with you, whether we're talking golf or, like you say, football contests. That show is off to a great start. I mean, and we kind of figured it would be, that's what we thought it would be, that there's such an appetite for football and football contests, and specifically the Crca contest and the Westgate Super contest here in Las Vegas. We thought it would be great to have a show about it. And yeah, I mean, there is quite a buzz about what's going on with CRCA Survivor. 14,266 initial entries this year. They are down to 3,877. Almost 73% of the field is out in 2 weeks. That is the fastest and largest rate of elimination in the 5 or 6 year history of CRCA Survivor. And unfortunately, myself and my co-hosts on the Las Vegas Football Contest Show are a part of that carnage. We are no longer involved in CRCA Survivor, but the show must go on. We do have a couple of entries into the Circa Sports Million and the Westgate Super Contest. We're doing pretty well there, knock on wood. But of course, we'll continue to cover CRCA Survivor, give our 2 cents on that, and track how that contest goes. But yeah, great to be back with you, and one more LIV event. Let's see if maybe we can hit one more pre-tournament outright. And then, of course, the President's Cup will wrap up the month of September. And then October is full of PGA Tour events. We have one every week next month.
I was going to start with the Crca, but we got the LIV up there now, LIV Dallas, the team championship. Shout out again to last week, the Raminator, Mr. John Rahm. I said for a while he had such a rough year, and it was pretty clear that, money isn't everything in life, but when you're offered that kind of money, it's kind of hard to say no. So the adjustment, the 3 days, the shorts, the crowds, that's not John Rahm, but he was able to muscle through it, catch fire at the end, and had a great weekend last weekend, Brady.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It was different for him to begin with. The rock and roll and the music and the atmosphere, and he was like, wait, this doesn't feel like the grind that I'm used to, or I think the arena that he wanted to be a part of. It didn't feel serious enough for him. But yeah, I mean, it took him a long time. When did, I'm trying to think back. Let's see. He went over there before the Masters. So, I mean, what was it? It's probably been a good 6-8 months now that I guess he's been a member of that circuit. And it took him probably 6 months to really dive in. And it feels like things turned, well, they turned at the Open Championship. And, not surprising there on his home European turf. He gets into the Open Championship and makes a great run. I think he ended up finishing 7th. It was his best major of the year. Didn't do well at the Masters, didn't do well at the US Open, didn't do well at the PGA. It all comes together at the Open Championship, and then sure enough, a week later, we were on him for that tournament in England, and that was his first win, and I think that kind of got him going. And I'm trying to remember if that came before the Olympics or after. I think the Olympics actually might have been next. And that's when he had that really near miss. We were on him there, and we were on him and Tommy Fleetwood, and Scottie Scheffler comes out of nowhere. We remember what happened there. And then it was actually the next week. They stayed in England, or they went over to England, and he won on the LIV circuit. And I think that stretch right there, that 3 or 4 week stretch of the Open Championship, the Olympic Games, and winning that LIV event, that kind of got him rooted in playing golf again. And I don't think he was immune to what was going on around him, and he was, had adapted to the environment of LIV and the style that goes on there. And yeah, it's been, just going great ever since. I think it was the following tournament he finished 2nd. And then maybe the following tournament. It's hard for me to recall with the LIV because they play once every 6 weeks or so. And then, of course, last week he wins again. So, and that's why, Jeff, I'm on him again here for this team competition. We'll get into the format and everything, but I think he's clearly the best player on that circuit. I mean, he's obviously one of the best players in the world. We knew that. Before he left for the LIV Tour, it was Scottie and Rory and Rahm. That was the big three, right? Well, it kind of still is, I think. And now it is again, now that he's kind of come back to where he left off. And I think that makes him clearly the best player in this very small field of only 54 people. And I was talking with some people yesterday. I've had great success picking these pre-tournament outrights on the LIV. Well, when you've got only 54 guys in the field and only really maybe 15 or 20 of them can win, it makes it a lot easier. So, yeah, I'm going with Rahm again this week. But, we'll get in a little deeper here into how this format works. I think it's an interesting tournament we've got going in Dallas this week.
Hey, I'm going to take it a step further. I have this 3-team parlay that we put together. We're calling it the three-peat, which is 2 of the 3 legs. The Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. The UConn Men Huskies men's basketball to get the three-peat in college basketball. And we took Scottie Scheffler to win the Masters, which would be back-to-back. At DraftKings, we got it at like 320 to 1.
Wow, that's
yeah,
great.
But I'm going to take it a step further. We don't no one likes their money held up, till the second Saturday, the second weekend in April. And we talk about futures all the time, Brady. We're seeing Rahm find his oats, able to juggle both. He's now got his rhythm going. We don't know what happened over the past weekend in New York City with Tiger and the Saudis. We don't know by next year if there's going to be a full agreement. I'm going to just ask you right now, would it behoove someone? Because Crca's got it out, and I think the Superbook, they already got the Masters odds out there. Before Rahm starts to really heat up, would it behoove you maybe to grab a bite at the apple and just toss it away for next April?
Well, it's not a bad idea because, like you say, now he's got his feet under him, and he's got that comfort level with the change that he's made. So, yeah. And the way he's going as of late now, the Masters, when they throw up that board, it's so intriguing because we're sitting here. I mean, how many months away from April are we? 7 or 8 months away from April. And we're going, yeah, I'm gonna take John Rahm at 10-1. And oh my gosh, there's Gary Woodland at 300-1. That seems too high. Give me some of that. And pretty soon we've got about 12 futures when April rolls around. And I've been a part of that trap before. But it does make sense because, like you and I both kind of agree here, that he's found his footing. And it feels like he has a comfort level. He's obviously red hot again. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins this week in Dallas. And then we roll into the next calendar year and the new season. And yeah, it kind of makes sense. Obviously, he's won a Masters before. And, maybe it's Scotty and Rahm back and forth here for a couple of years. And, you almost have to take a little piece of Rory every year, too. I know you're a big Rory fan. It just feels like, you don't want to be not involved when he does complete the Rory slam, But it's hard to argue having those three players in your pocket. They're arguably the best three players in the world, just like they were, roughly a year ago or so. So, yeah, and the Masters, too, you talk about, do you want to play Scotty at whatever he probably is, 5-1? Do you want to play Rory at 10 or 12? Do you want to play Rahm at 10? Well, the Masters is a chalky tournament. There's not a lot of guys at 50, 60, 80-1 that win the Masters. So it is one tournament where you can feel okay about taking those very short double-digit prices.
And as you were talking about this tournament, we always talk about, some of these tournaments, 150, 155 golfers. It's throwing darts. The Masters, again, 89 golfers, about 59 make the cut. And as you know, there's literally only 25 to 30 that actually can win this tournament.
Yep, absolutely right, and that's what we've seen as of late. It's been Rahm, it's been Scotty, it's been Hideki. And Brooks Koepka's been right there a couple of times. Yeah, the cream rises to the top, absolutely, at Augusta National. I don't think we've had a real long shot. I want to say this was maybe 2011 when Charles Schwartzel won at about 100-1. But otherwise, Sergio Garcia, Patrick Reed. Who else? Dustin Johnson was about 15 or 20-1. So yeah, the deepest I think you want to go, or the trend has been anyway, that it's 30-1 or shorter that wins the Masters.
All right, we're going to stick right here. LIV Golf Dallas Team Championship. You have a couple outright winners. The stage is yours. The fairway is yours. Go ahead and have some fun here.
Yeah, so Merideau Golf Club, which is just a beast of a golf course about 20 miles northwest of Dallas. This thing tips out to over 7,800 yards. The slope rating is 155, and the course rating is over 80. So, this is a tough place to play. Smaller, firm, and fast greens. The fairways, I would say, are about average width. And then you have these native grasses that border the fairways. I don't think we've ever seen this course before. I'm not sure if they played this team competition here last year. I don't believe that they did. But I think it'll be very interesting to watch this golf course, the way it tests these players. I thought last week would be very easy in Chicago, Bolingbrook, and it gave these players a better test than I certainly thought it would. I think this week will be even more difficult. The format is very interesting, and I think the PGA Tour could maybe take a page out of this book and kind of put it into their tour championship. you've got 13 teams of 4 on the LIV circuit, and each one of them has a chance to win. The top 3 seeds, the top 3 teams get a bye. So they start on Friday, but the teams with a bye, and this is something you talked about, getting a bye in the Tour Championship, Jeff. The Crushers team, Bryson DeChambeau's team, the Legion 13, Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton's team, and then Ripper Golf Club, the team of Australians, Cam Smith's team. Those are the top 3 seeds. They get a bye. They're already in the semifinals. They don't have to compete until Saturday. Everybody else will compete against one another. You have singles matches, like, a la the Ryder Cup or the President's Cup, match play, one-on-one. And then the rest of the 4 players, from one team versus another, they play a 4-ball, an alternate shot. And you earn a point for whoever wins the match, okay? And whoever has the most points advances to the next round. And then eventually you get to Sunday, where it all becomes just stroke play. So it's a combination of a bye, match play, alternate shot, singles, and then finally just traditional stroke play on Sunday. And eventually we determine a winner, for however many points that particular team has accumulated. So I think it's a very interesting format. It seems about as fair as you could get it. And of course, there's seeding, and there is advantages with a bye and what have you for the teams that have accomplished more throughout the season. And as I mentioned earlier, the favorite is John Rahm and Tyrrell Hatton's team at 3-1. And I'm going to take them, because how can I bet against John Rahm on the LIV Tour right now? I can't. He's the best player on that tour. He's the hottest player on that tour. And oh, by the way, his teammate is also one of the hottest players in Tyrrell Hatton. I also like them because of their experience in match play as members of the Ryder Cup team multiple times. So I think that gives them a little bit of an advantage versus other teams that maybe have not played as much match play or had as much Ryder Cup, that type of international stage experience. They are the chalk. And, again, when you've only got 13 teams to choose from, I don't think it's, out of line to necessarily gravitate towards the chalk. Again, when we have a proven guy in John Rahm who's been so hot. Tyrrell Hatton, by the way, Rahm won in Chicago last week. Tyrrell Hatton finished 4th. Now, the other 2 guys on their team haven't been so good, but I imagine they'll put them on the 4-ball part of the competition, and Rahm and Hatton will be the singles matches guys, and I think they'll have an advantage in beating their opponent and giving them a chance to advance. The other team I went with was the Fireballs Golf Club, which is Sergio Garcia's team. Now, they're a pretty loaded squad. Sergio Garcia, who's won on the LIV circuit this year. We were on him at Valderrama in Spain. Abraham Answer, who won much earlier in the year, and then David Puig, who threatened at Valderrama as well, another Spaniard. Puig and Answer have both finished top 20 on the last 3 LIV events, so they've been in great form. And Sergio, you could argue, has had one of the best years of the entire tour. He won once. I think he's lost in a playoff twice, and he was runner-up to John Rahm last week in Chicago. So he comes in great form as well. And then, who's one of the best Ryder Cup match play players of all time? Sergio Garcia. So I like that for this format as well. Got the Sergio's team at 12-1. So just 2 shots. This team format, when you start having to handicap a team element versus just one-on-one golf, it becomes very, very difficult. And then you throw in match play on top of that. That's more difficult than your typical stroke play. So, I'm not going crazy this week because it's such a different, convoluted format. But I just kind of went with guys that are playing well, have been playing well, and are good at match play. And that led me to Rahm and Hatton's team versus Sergio's team. Rahm at 3-1, Sergio at 12-1. We'll see if we can get one of them home.
After this week, live on the shelf for a while, Brady?
Yeah, I think they take kind of the rest of the year off and resume in January, kind of like the PGA Tour will, and maybe they'll be back here in Las Vegas. It was Super Bowl weekend. They played here at the Las Vegas Country Club. Dustin Johnson won that event. So yeah, I imagine it'll be sometime towards the first of the year. I think they went to Mayakoba in Cancun, Riviera Maya. They had some events down there south of the border as well. So yeah, I believe January neighborhood when the tour kicks off its 2025 season. I believe that's when LIV will as well.
We're going to head back to football, the Crca contests, and you brought up the Crca Millions. 10 picks so far this week. The first 2 weeks, 5 picks each week against the spread. The consensus, the top picks in week 1 went 1-4. The top picks in week 2 went 0-5. So the consensus has started 1-9. Now, obviously, the overall people are like, we're done, which you're not done. I've even seen people say, shoot, I'm 1-9. Now do I go for the booby prize? But again, the fact that you got quarters, thought process in the Crca Millions after 2 weeks for the consensus 1-9.
Well, we're feeling pretty good because, we're right around 500, which puts you in the top 20-25% of the field because the majority of this field has gone 1-9 in the first 2 weeks. So, if you're batting 600 right now, you're looking really good. But yeah, there was 1 year in Crca where I think in week 3 or something like that, I went 0-5. And I wasn't off to a great start to begin with, but that was rock bottom. And I turned and I said, all right, I'm going to go for the booby prize. Now, the tough part about the booby prize is I think they only pay 2, maybe 3 spots at the most. It used to only be 1. It was whoever had the worst record was the booby prize winner. I think it was $100,000. As the contest has gotten bigger, I think they went to the worst 2 folks, and maybe now it's the worst 3. It's no more than 3. So you don't have as many chances to cash. But I turned and started trying to pick losers the rest of the year and finished like inside the bottom 30. I really made a good run at it. Had I done that and gone the other way, I might have cashed, right? So. And you're right, the quarterly, and there's booby quarterly prizes too. So if you are going for losers, you can still cash, by having an awful few weeks for being the worst as well. So yeah, it is decision time here pretty soon. Now we've only got 2 weeks in the books. I think after the first quarter, once we hit the first quarter poll, if you will, that's maybe when you want to decide, all right, where am I at? Where am I at in the field? Do I want to turn and start going for losers, or can I just tread water here and maybe try and win a quarterly prize?
We got a couple minutes left here, Brady. The people sticking their chest out that had the Chargers on last week in the Survivor contest. I mean, geez, the Chargers, come on here. We're talking the Panthers here. And I had Bill Krakenberg on Monday. And I'm like, well, I sense there will be history in the Crca contest because whoever's alive, I'm going to say 50, 60, maybe even 70% will be on the Raiders this week hosting the Panthers. Well, Coach says, hold my beer for the Panthers. Bryce Young, you're sitting on the bench. In comes Andy Dalton. I'm actually seeing money come in on the Panthers. That number's down to 5.5. So if you had the Chargers, I would have thought your first initial thought was, hey, we're just going to go with the Raiders this week. We're just going to fade the Panthers. It seems like Andy Dalton now has kind of slowed that roll a little, Brady.
Well, some of that money on the Panthers is mine. I played Andy Dalton and the Panthers this week as well. First of all, the Raiders were maybe the biggest, well, they were the biggest combatant to knocking all those people out of Crca Survivor last week. You had over 2,300 people on the Ravens, who had a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter, by the way, and blew that. They have made a habit the last handful of years of blowing leads in the fourth quarter, have the Baltimore Ravens. So the Raiders come off of that big win. Now they have their home opener. How are they going to be able to maintain that level in front of their home crowd? I'm not sure they will be able to. Dalton, I think, is clearly an upgrade at quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. Obviously an experience, veteran knowledge, that type of thing. But I'm also thinking just in pure talent, even at this point in Andy Dalton's career. Bryce Young, I said it after week one, and I think we were saying it possibly last season, and now it's confirmed. He's a bust. He's forget about it. He is not going to make it in this league. I'm not even sure if he's a good backup quarterback. And it's nothing against the kid personally. I just don't think he is an NFL quarterback in any shape or form. So Dalton is a good thing for the Panthers. Then you've also got the mentality that the rest of the team is going to take. Okay, and you can play sideline psychologist here. Are they going to say, all right, our guy was just sent to the bench. We need to really rally here and show this guy that, hey, we're supportive and we're going to win one for the Gipper, so to speak, blah, blah, blah. Our new guy Andy's in here. We want to play for him. Or you can also spin it like, hey, we want to show the rest of the world that this awful streak of losing that we've been on is not our fault. It was that guy that they just benched. And so we're going to play our tails off and show the rest of the world that we're not so bad. So there's a lot of different angles, I think, mentally, and that's qualitative. It's not quantitative. But I think those are real aspects that you have to try and measure here. The fact is there's been change in Carolina, and I think it can only motivate this team, however you want to spin it. I think it's a good change for Carolina, and they'll show up against the Las Vegas Raiders, who, by the way, aren't that good of a team to begin with.
The scroll has been going the whole time. Everyone knows where to find you, of course, on Twitter, X, at Las Vegas Golfer. They can find your written work at PGA Tour, at Golf Bet. But as we always end this show, tell them what your TV schedule is on the Sports Grid. Talk about your podcast, where to find that, and the rest of the weekend for you, Brady.
Yeah, every Wednesday on Sports Grid at 7:30 Eastern, and then again at 10 p.m. Eastern, talking golf when there's a golf tournament coming up. This week we do have the LIV Circuit, of course, and then talking football as well. We'll be doing both of that tonight. And speaking of football, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, you can find it wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube. Take a look at it. It's been very popular and well received because we're talking specifically about Crca Survivor, Crca Sports Million, and the Westgate Super Contest. Myself and my co-hosts, we give out our picks for each contest. We have been eliminated from Crca Survivor like over 10,000 others, but we're doing pretty well in Crca Sports Million and the Westgate Super Contest. So we do a deep dive into these contests week in and week out, and it's not just for contests. We're still handicapping games, so you can even use this for your bets that you're getting ready to make on Sunday. And again, that's the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. You can find out all the information you want on our website at footballcontestshow.com. And then, of course, all the updates, as you mentioned, Jeff, on my Twitter handle at Las Vegas Golfer.
Next week, President's Cup?
Yeah, we'll have a preview of the President's Cup. The line right now I'm seeing is about minus 300 on the United States. The take back on the international side at about plus 250. And then if you go to a three-way market where you include a possible tie, it's about minus 260 for the U.S., about plus 240 for the international, and like 16-1 on a tie. I'm going to let this market mature a little bit. I want to bet the international side, but it almost feels like a bit of a sucker bet right now. I want to see where this market goes before I get involved, and maybe I won't get involved, but I'm very intrigued. The international side is kind of playing a home game. There's 3 or 4 or 5 Canadians, you count Mike Weir, the captain, maybe half a dozen Canadians as a part of this team, and they're playing in Montreal. I think there's something to be said for that.
The one and only Brady Kannon. Go follow him at Las Vegas Golfer. Go tune in tonight, of course, 7 and 10 p.m. on the grid. Tell the boys I said hello, Brady, and we'll catch you next week.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'll go to a quick commercial break, and when we come back, the one and only Mr. Tyler Wyatt. We'll be right back. Next guest, no introduction needed, whether it's on the felt, whether it's talking SEC, college football, college basketball. Blessed and honored to have the one and only Mr. Tyler Wyatt. What's up, T?
What's going on? Happy, what is it, Wednesday? It's always hump day now on East Coast Sports Investors. My favorite day of the week for multiple reasons. You can probably guess one.
Big week. We got a lot of games to talk about, but let's start with last weekend. First and foremost, hats off. You talked about your numbers, which are second to none. You couldn't wrap your head around the Florida State-Memphis number. Congrats. Talk about that.
Yeah, free fall Florida State, unfortunately. Mike Norvell, less than, 8 months removed from an undefeated season, a playoff case-making season, and you find yourself staring at 0-3, and a very testy Cal team coming to Tallahassee. So there's no guarantee that they escape 0-4. A number of friends of mine that live in the Tallahassee area, obviously, this season is down the drain, but a lot of questions being asked on what is the future for Mike Norvell, what is the future for this program. They have a ton of talent. It's not materialized. You can look at quarterback, obviously, pretty easy. But yeah, it was a Memphis number that just didn't make a whole lot of sense. What we had seen from Florida State through 2 weeks going into last week, there was very little reason that they should have been a touchdown favorite or close. I think much easier to say that was a coin flip type of game. It's pretty easy to take Memphis there. Obviously, it's easier to say it after we cash, but it's a Florida State team right now. It's just there's a lot of questions being asked by a lot of coaches, by a lot of staff. Wouldn't surprise me if this gets really ugly the later we get into the season. I think we'll see a lot of transfers, and we'll see a lot of pressure on administration, whether or not they decide to ride Mike Norvell or maybe make a decision. You used to have, if you made it to a 12-0 season in the 90s, certainly in the early 2000s, that bought you 3 or 4 years. It's not the case anymore. If you have one disappointing season, there's just so much money from TV, so much money at these schools' disposal that it's really easy to make a 20 or 30, $40 million decision and go a different direction. Whereas 20 years ago it wasn't the case. Mike Norvell loses to Cal. I'm not so sure he finishes the season. Our model actually likes Florida State. We have the -5, just over 5, so about a field goal over where the market is right now. I do think they get a win, but they need for our model to be right, or it's going to be a really, really rough September. This is a schedule that, it looked pretty manageable preseason. We talked a lot of pre-flop on this show. This schedule from week 5 to week 12 with a loss to Cal, you can point to a lot of games that this team is capable of losing.
We followed your lead, but we went in a different direction just in case Florida State, had that bounce back game. We had the Memphis team total under 23.5. It was a little sweaty, of course, but we also cashed on that game as well there. So hats off to both of us there on that game. Let's stay in the SEC, actually move to the SEC. Another game that we were able to cash. We had the Kentucky team total over the 10 and a hook. Now, they were able to move the ball, but settling for 3 usually doesn't beat the number 1 team in the country called Georgia, which it didn't, 13-12, of course. Thoughts on Georgia? Thoughts, I thought it was a great bounce back spot for Kentucky, but now the polls said, Georgia, grab a seat. There's a new sheriff in town. It's called Texas. They bounced them up to 1 in Georgia, too.
Yeah, our number was 2.5 points under market. It was a disappointing performance, I'll say that. We had 34.6 projected points for Georgia. They don't get halfway there. We had 14 points projected for Kentucky, and they score 4 times. You would think, okay, well, they get past 14. No, it's not the case. They settle for 4 field goals. Yeah, you can't beat the number 1 defense, the number 1 team still, in my opinion, in college football kicking field goals. It was a game that Kentucky had multiple possessions there in the fourth quarter with a chance to win this game. It was a disappointing performance. I will say this, though, as a Kentucky fan, this might be the best thing that could happen to that Georgia team. They were a little sluggish out of the gate against Clemson in the first half, maybe to be expected in the season opener. But this was maybe a game that Kirby Smart could kind of show his guys, hey, yeah, we look at our regular season win streak. That's fine. We almost lost, to a good team, but we're going to play a lot of really good teams, a lot of great teams the rest of the season. This might be a really good thing for that Georgia team. They don't need they don't need help. They already have 5 stars and 4 stars galore. They don't need any extra things to benefit from a game. But the coaching staff, I think, could use that performance to help them going forward. They have a couple of really big games, obviously Alabama and Tennessee now, what's even more daunting, where, folks had that one at 17 in May, down to 15, down to 14. Would be really surprised if that's much over touchdown. In our model right now, it's about 7.5. But this is a Georgia team. That Kentucky game could benefit them. Not that Kirby Smart needs any help, but it was a disappointing performance, I think. I guess you could say the defense played a solid game. That the fact that you held a team to 4 field goals where you could have gave up a touchdown and ultimately cost your team the game. The offense was real slow. It was just one of those weird type of games in the SEC and in Big Ten and big boy football. That happens. You see one of these lower tier teams give it to one of the top tier teams a handful of times a season. If that's the only one for Georgia, Kirby Smart doesn't have any issues. If they play like they did in Lexington against Tennessee, that's not going to be a game that they win. And there's a number of other SEC teams. There's a Georgia Tech team on the roster at the end of the season, or on the schedule at the end of the season. If they play like they did in Lexington, could be a loss. This is a Georgia team I think will benefit from a pretty poor performance in Lexington. I think they bounce back, and we get 100% from Georgia here going forward.
Alabama, a slow start. Wisconsin 3-0. Got all the Badger fans all hot and bothered, and then next thing you know, they put up 42. What is your look-ahead line for Georgia and Alabama? They meet this year in the regular season. Never mind, we don't have to wait till the SEC potential final.
I have Georgia 0.6. Staring at the model right now. Is that game in? I don't have the schedule pulled up. Is that one in Tuscaloosa? 0.6 in favor of Georgia. So if the game's in Alabama, Alabama's right at a 2-point favorite. If it's in Athens, it's Georgia 3.5, depending on where you put the juice there. Georgia top our power rating right now, 0.6 points clear of number 2. Alabama, Texas in most of the polls are number 1. I understand why. They've looked brilliant. They're third in our model right now. Right now we have them 0.8 points behind Georgia neutral. Tennessee comes in at number 5. Ohio State, the lone non-SEC team in the top 6 in our model. Ole Miss at 6th right now would be 5.5 point neutral dog to Georgia. So yeah, it's Texas probably. Tennessee certainly looks better than I think a lot of national guys thought. There was a fair amount of confidence here. I'm in Knoxville most of the year. A lot of confidence here going into the season. Nico, obviously, the way he played the last couple of games last season looked really good. Defense has been really good this year. I think maybe a bit of a surprise. Knew they would be better. They've been really, really good. We'll learn more about them, obviously, this Saturday. It's the marquee game of, the entire slate. Yeah, it's a top-heavy in both the polls, and you can look around at power ratings from, a number of handicappers. top 5, top 6 mostly made up of the SEC. That's when we talked about how tough it is, even in the games where you're playing a team like Kentucky or a team like Vanderbilt, week in and week out. You have to be on your A game every week in the SEC or you take a L. It's really hard.
Before we get to the marquee game and some of the games that you might have in pocket lanes or what your model's seeing versus the numbers like Memphis and Florida State, what was your final take from the BC Missouri game? I thought BC held its own. They're 6.5-point favorites Saturday night at the Heights against Michigan State, a number I thought was a little high initially. Again, we were trying to wrap our head around how the hell is Missouri, 15-point favorites over BC. I saw a Missouri team that I thought was kind of going through the motions in the first half. They got it cranked up in the second half, but the All-American wide receiver that's all-world, the biggest bonehead in the world. I think he had 2 or 3 straight penalties for, throwing a mouthpiece, doing this, diva-esque, NFL style. What was your final take on the Missouri-BC game?
Yeah, I don't remember if we touched on it on this show. I gave that every Thursday. I do a show here with the Cumulus Station in Knoxville. That was my big play. There was no reason that Missouri should have been north of a 2-touchdown favorite there. Castellanos, really, really solid quarterback. It's a complete team rushing the football. They're one of the best teams in college football in the rush attack. Any number north of 14 I thought was good. There was a point there in the second half where, maybe we're on pins and needles there. Missouri up 10 with the ball. Boston College scores late, and then it's, a touchdown game. Missouri has to convert a third down to get a victory there. Number was inflated. I think you could maybe look at that number against Michigan State now and wonder if, the market or odds makers at least have adjusted appropriately. Our number on that one is 5.4, so we're not too out of line where the market is. Michigan State, haven't seen a lot from them against quality competition, but it's a Boston College team, well coached. Bill O'Brien, you can go down the list of the top 20 teams in college football, and I'll make a case that Bill O'Brien is as good or better as any of those coaches. He's one of the best coaches, not just college, in all of football. So they're going to have, in most matchups, they're going to have a coaching advantage. Castellanos is a really solid quarterback. In that conference, they're going to have quarterback advantage almost every game. Defensively, he has them playing really good football. You mentioned, Luther Burden did a lot of things great through the air. He did a lot of really dumb things on the ground, after the play. But Brady Cook did what he's done pretty much his entire career at Missouri. He's taken care of the football and made a lot of really poor decisions. And they're well coached. I wasn't a huge Eli. When that hire was made, I wasn't a big fan of Drinkwitz coming to the SEC. Did a lot of really good things at Appalachian State, obviously. He's kind of made me a believer now. It's a really, really good program. Really, really, I'm not going to say it's a tough place to play. I've been there a number of times. I grew up in Missouri. But it's a Missouri football team right now you have to watch out for. We mentioned a number of SEC teams there in the top 5 or 6 in our power rating. We didn't get to Missouri. They're not too far down. They're inside the top 10. That's not an easy out for anyone in the SEC or anyone else in the country that they're going to play. Yeah, Boston College, tough team. Number was inflated. That was a pretty easy decision for us.
I texted you early this summer, didn't get out to Las Vegas for the World Series of Poker, but I talked about the Vols in Oklahoma back in July, and I said to you, first one to 40 wins this game, and you was like, I hope our number's a little less than that. Well, it opened at 60, down to 57. Kind of very surprised. Vols -6 in some shops. I'm a big Vols fan. I think Oklahoma's solid, but what I have seen so far this year is both defenses are pretty damn good here.
Yeah, so we tweeted out Sunday before Crca opened their number. We had a projected final 31-27. Those are rounded. We had 58.8 projected. You mentioned it opened at 60 and came down. We saw 57.5 at some shops. We saw 7.5 briefly at some books yesterday. 7 and numbers all around. If you like Tennessee, there are favorable numbers on the market. If you like Oklahoma, there are better numbers. So bookmakers right now seems like are torn on where to stick that. I was in French Lick. They on a golf trip a couple weeks ago. Bet Rivers Casino there. I wake up on Sunday morning after a busy day. Tennessee had just beaten UT Chattanooga, but 69-0 or whatever. They still have 4.5 up for the look-ahead line at Bet Rivers. So I walked to the counter and I said, "How much can I get down?" He says, "Well, how much do you want to get down?" I said, "Well, how much can I get down?" And he says, "Well, how much do you want to bet?" I said, "Well, no, that's not how this works. I tell you a number, and then you're going to change the spread on me." I said, "How much can I bet at 4.5?" He said, "I'll let you bet the house limit 500." I was like, "Get out of here!" That's why I hate Indiana. We played a nickel at 4.5, and then I said, "Well, can I bet it again?" He said, "I have to adjust the number." I said, "That's what I thought." We knew that number was not going to be 4.5 Oklahoma 2 weeks ago. I didn't think that it would be a touchdown. After the UT Chattanooga game, I had it Oklahoma -1, so I was catching a field goal there. After Tennessee wins their third game, it's a pretty easy decision. After Oklahoma and Tulane was not a great game on both sides. Tulane didn't play a solid game. Oklahoma defense kept them in that one and ultimately won that game. But we knew that Tennessee was going to be favored. It was how much. When I readjusted our numbers Saturday night late, I came up with Tennessee 3.3, and we knew that DraftKings, we knew that FanDuel both had one had 4 and one had 6 early in the week last week. So I was surprised that I was under both of those. I still feel pretty confident that that's a safe number. Tennessee at 7, it's tough for me to take that. I can't lay 7 there. Big road game. It's an Oklahoma team who is in kind of uncharted territory. They're not touchdown underdogs in Norman. This is not something that's commonplace. It's a Tennessee team under Josh Heupel. This is they're setting records week in and week out when it comes to the spread. I think this is a game where it feels like it's a one possession game one way or the other. I do think Tennessee wins the game. 7, I think, is a playable number on Oklahoma. If you get down under 6, it's probably a no play for me. But our number at I think it's 3.3 and 58.8. I'll have to take Oklahoma at an even touchdown and kind of go against the hot team, so to speak. But it's a Tennessee team offensively that they're capable of doing it through the air, capable of doing it on the ground. Their defense has played really good. Oklahoma will have to have better offensive production. This is a team that's been up and down all season. If they're slow out of the gate here, they are staring straight at a 17-0 deficit early in the second half, or early in the second quarter, not the second half. This is a team that has to be on it on all cylinders offensively, or they're going to be in a big hole. And I'm not sure they're built to come back from, maybe more than a score. 10 points would feel like a big ask for that offense. Would have to turn Tennessee over a couple of times, I think, to get out of there. But yeah, it's the primetime game, obviously game day there. Josh Heupel, Nico have been the talks of national radio, not just regional at this point. And then you have the storyline. We haven't even got to Josh Heupel going back to Oklahoma. Bob Stoops firing him instead of his brother there. He was kind of a scapegoat. And then Norman I don't know if he added fuel to the fire or if he tried to take some logs out of the fire this week. He posted on social media that he wasn't going to answer any questions about the Heupel Venables storyline there. Obviously, both assistants under him. He misspells Heupel in his post, which tells me that he's leaning towards taking his boy Venables back and the Sooners. But yeah, there's all kinds of storylines here. Glad that this one is a 7:30 game, that we get to talk about it or build up to it there on Saturday before we get the slate's not all that sexy, so I'm glad that there's a really good game in that 7:30 window. We'll get better games, obviously, next week and as we get further into the season. Big marquee game. You can maybe make a case that this one is as big a game as there has been all year. Michigan, Texas was supposed to be, fell flat. This will be an opportunity here for these teams to make a case. Even Oklahoma, if they stay close with Tennessee and take a tough one on the chin, they can navigate that Big 12 and maybe make a case that they're in a playoff at 11-1. They're in 10-2 with a loss to Tennessee, and maybe they lose one to Oklahoma State or Texas in the Red River, or can we call it the Red River rivalry anymore? I don't know. If their losses are Tennessee and Texas and they're 10-2, pretty solid case that they're a playoff team. They would at least be in the conversation. So important for Oklahoma not only to try to get a win, but to not get blown out.
Yeah, it'll be tough. They hang me that 31.5, and I'm getting plus money with Tennessee team total over. It's going to be tough for me to pass on, so we're going to keep an eye on that, especially. Got about 5 minutes left, Tyler. What we want to always do here to end your segment, you're the master, you're the numbers, you got the Bible right in front of you. We got standing room only right now, Tyler. Give some people some games, some edges, some in pocket already. Excuse me, some games that you see your numbers compared to what the market is, where you can see some edges like Memphis and some other games last week.
Yeah, this one hurts to say. It's USC and Michigan books at 5.5, 46.5 or thereabouts. Our number has Michigan a small favorite. It's tiny. It's 0.7, but it says that Michigan is the favorite here. So if I can catch 5.5 there on a game that I have, Michigan coming out with a really close victory, I'm going to take Michigan. The second one we go to is Buffalo and Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois, the talk of the season in terms of big upsets there with a big win against Notre Dame. They're at home against a stingy Buffalo team. It's not a great team in Buffalo. Our number, though, 11.2 on that game, about a field goal under market. Cal and Florida State. Talked about that one earlier. We got a 2.5 number here, 44.5 total. Our total on this game is 53.5, 53.4. We've got Florida State 5.2. So both sides of this, leaning over and taking Florida State to kind of right a bunch of wrongs. And then the last one, Baylor and Colorado. Deion, Colorado, they're always, it seems like, trying to be in the news. It was Sanders not shaking opposing quarterback hands and some players doing some things there off the field after a tough win. Our number has Baylor minus 3.3. Market right now right at 1.5, 53.5. Our total 53.7, pretty in line. We've got Baylor a field goal favorite there. We're going to play Baylor to win that one outright and ride against prime time. I think I'm sick and tired of hearing about Colorado. Once this kid is gone, he's going to leave and go to the NFL, so we won't have to hear it for much longer. But I think Baylor takes it to Buffalo's at home.
Go back to the Buffalo UNI game. Again, big upset in Notre Dame. What is the market number? What is your number? And your lean was Buffalo or was it UNI?
All right, we're taking the dog there. 14 and 43.5. Most books, odd screen is wanting to not load. 14.43.5. It looks like at a lot of books. We have 11.2 and 46.6 on the numbers. We're taking Buffalo plus the 14. If it goes up, if you find 14.5, I think it's a great number. It's a Buffalo team that I have watched. I have watched all three of their games this year. They have not been great, but they are getting it done. It's a Northern Illinois team, talented team. Looks to be maybe the Group of 5 representative in the playoff, but it's a Northern Illinois team. I think this week just gets a win. I don't know that they blow out Buffalo. I'm not sure that Buffalo. I think they'll like to keep the clock going. I think this one low scoring. We have 28.9, 17.7. So just in line with the total there, but it's not going to be a blowout, I don't think. I like Buffalo plus the 14.
Go follow Tyler at Tyler Wyatt Bets at Odds Culture. What's the weekend look like, Tyler?
Weekend will just be college football, NFL. We would take a deeper dive into the NFL normally after about week 4. NFL is really, really hard to beat. I think you can exploit some games there, but it'll be college football for us this week as we gear up to a little better slate in week 6. Is this week 6 technically? I don't know if we got rid of week 0 or not. Next week's slate much better than this slate. We get some bigger, more meaningful games. We get into conference play and get some of those FCS teams out of the schedule. I wanted to ask you, when do we see the FCS matchups stop? Because I was talking with someone here in local radio about the Tennessee and the Kent State game. I said, Tennessee is going to win this one by 70. He's like, well, are you sure? I said, yeah, I'm sure. There's 0% doubt. Kent State's awful. I said, would it do the rest of the FBS a favor if Josh Heupel hangs 100 on them so that we say, why are we playing these games? I know that it's a lot of money for the FCS. It just seems like there would be easier ways to steer cash into the coffers of those teams, let those teams play kind of amongst themselves, and then you get more quality football instead of, quantity. I'm in favor of better matchups. I'd rather see 10 really good matchups every week instead of, there's 3 weeks every year where it's just, all right, we go out and tailgate and then we leave at the half. It doesn't seem like it does anyone any good.
Well, here's the funny is 2 days prior we gave out South Alabama team total over 48 and a half. They put up 87 and they stopped the game in the fourth quarter. You and I talked about Tennessee. You said they could score 100. We were having some nice, funny little jabs on Twitter. At halftime, Tennessee reached out to Kent State. Hey, do you want to, pull the plug in the fourth? They said, no, we want to let it go and we want to play. So it's about the check. We talked about UNI. UNI got a cool 1.4 million, 28.5 point underdog, shocked the world and won in Notre Dame. So I think each team is independent here. The Yukon football team traveling to Clemson, traveling to some of these big teams to get an ass whooping. I think it's the coach and the AD. Some thrive on it just to see how the kids perform. When you're down 35, 45 at half, are you in the locker room at halftime getting ready to jump on the bus, or are you going to say, hey guys, let's win the second half here? How your kids react. So I think it's more on the program, Tyler, and I think they're here to stay.
Yeah, you're right. It's, it is a lot of money for the schools. It just seems like there would be other ways we could get, some cash in their pockets without doing that. I don't think we're too many years away from, the top half of college football maybe deciding that they're better off running it themselves and just kicking the NCAA to the curb, which would pretty much fix that problem. But we'll pump the brakes there. Let's get to a playoff of 16 teams and a little further down the road before we get into that conversation.
Mr. Russell Saylor, good morning. Marty Lowe, good morning. Amber Hawley, good morning as well. Russell says NDSU, the exception to the rule, 100% there. Marty Lowe, roll tide as the tide keeps rolling. Tyler, we can't thank you enough. We'll catch you the same time, same bat channel next Wednesday. Keep up the great work. Good luck cashing those plays. Ryan, we'll go to a quick commercial and we'll wrap it up.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no way, with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop, come on, baby,
Ryan Shanklin behind the glass today. Can't thank you enough. Without you, I'd be wearing 28 hats. I can't be doing all that. Shout out, of course, to Mr. Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golfer, at Sports Grid, at Golf Bet, at PGA Tour, breaking down the LIV, talking about the carnage in the Crca contests and even the Crca Millions, where the consensus, top 5 picks each week's 1-9. So everyone here that thinks you can beat the NFL, good luck there. And of course, a shout out to Mr. Tyler Wyatt at Tyler Wyatt Bets, good friend, colleague, professional poker player, professional sports bettor, college football. He'll be getting into the NFL as it progresses, and of course, college basketball. 5 p.m. The closing bell, myself and Riley Magnuson will get you caught up in tonight's slate and get you to the window, hopefully to cash a few tickets. And at 6:15, Scotty Webb back for In the Batter's Box. Again, thanks to everyone here, Amber, Marty, Russell. If anyone here hasn't subscribed to our YouTube channel, jump on over to YouTube at East Coast Sports Investor. Subscribe. It's free. Tell a friend. Tell your next door neighbor. And of course, a shout out to our proud sponsors and partnership, WagerWire. If you haven't downloaded that app, head on over to Google Play, download it. It's free. Viva Tequila Seltzer, CT Bets, the team, the family. Of course, the East Coast team is Cuckoo for Coconut, your new flavor there. And Terry Smith, Atlanta Steak and Seafood. Head on over to Facebook. Follow Terry Smith. Follow Atlanta Steak and Seafood. Tell him JD from ECSI sent you. Place an order today or tomorrow. You'll be cooking on NFL Sunday, I promise you. Shout out to Ryan. Thank you guys so much. We will see you soon.